technical issues. Here I am. So maybe before I start, I will quickly introduce myself. So my name is Emilie Raffo. I work in Geneva. I work for ODEM, which is a project that wants to make high-quality education affordable for everyone, and we use the blockchain technology for this. And I am also the co-organizer of the Swiss Blockchain for Good meetup. So basically what we do is we give the floor to people who want to use the blockchain technology as a force for good. And I'm really passionate about this, because I think that the blockchain technology is about to drastically change the organization of our economy. And I'll tell you why. So you know, when our grandmothers were young, they experienced the democratization of cars, you know? And it's unbelievable that you can use a car that's parked in front of your house, you just jump in it, and then travel to the next city at 100 kilometers per hour. That's amazing. How can the world be more connected than this? Then came our mothers, and they witnessed the democratization of television. I mean, can you believe it? Having in your home access to news of the world, being able to know what happens in all countries, being able on the phone to talk to someone who's in a different country and hear their voice in live. How can the world be more connected than this? And then there's us. And we have, so I was supposed to have my smartphone, but I forgot, ah, there it is. And we have this. We have witnessed the appearance of this, the internet in our pockets. We have access to a wealth of information right there in our pockets. How can the world be more connected than this? And you know, I'm a digital native. So basically, I never studied or worked without the internet. And personally, I can't believe how hard it must have been to live without a smartphone. I mean, if I had to come here and to use a map to find my way to come here, I would have been even more late than I was, you know? And even worse, let's not even think about calling a taxi. Like, you have to get your map, call the taxi, explain where you are, then he has to know where it is, he has to come, and you have to explain again where you want to go. My God, how could people live like this and have so much trouble to do such a simple task as ordering an Uber? And, you know, I think my kids, I think they won't believe that we used to need 3 to 5 business days for a bank transfer from Mexico to Germany, and that it would cost you 5 to 10% of the amount that you sent. I think my kids won't believe that we used to give out our private information for free to all the companies that wanted it, that those companies were making money with this information, and that we didn't get a dime of it. I think my kids won't believe this. By the way, this is that's how people dress in the future, in case you're wondering. So you know, right now, we live in the time of the Internet of Information. We use a copy and paste model. So for example, when you send an email, when you send an image or anything, you don't actually send the image, you send a copy of the image. And it's totally fine if like you are sending a WhatsApp message or a picture, because you want to keep the copy of what you have and you want the other person to have it. So it's all fine. But then when it comes to value transfer, well, that's a bit of a problem. Because you know, the scarcity is a very important factor of the price of an asset. For example, if I send you 50 euros, well, I can't still have the 50 euros. You know, I have to give them to you, and I have to renounce to my ownership of those 50 euros. And this is why the Internet of Information that we have now is not fit for value transfer. And then usually people tell me this, but I buy things online. And sure we do, but we don't actually exchange value online. What we do is we ask an intermediary to give us permission to spend the money and to send it to someone else on our behalf. And usually, these intermediaries, they are either slowing things down or making things more expensive. And often, they do both. And you know, when I say the Internet of Information is not fit for value transfer, I'm not only talking about money. I'm also talking about any valuable content. You know, if you can copy and paste information, if you can copy and paste contents the way you like, well, it's very hard to protect the people who create these contents. And right now, if you look at musicians and movie makers who already have to cope with incredibly expensive intermediaries, well, now when they are online, they only get a tiny, tiny piece of the profits that they make with the contents they have online. And this is where the Internet of Value comes in. Instead of having a model that uses copy and paste, you have a model that uses cut and paste. And basically, when I send you 50 euros, you have the 50 euros and I don't have them anymore. And this is how cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin work. You send money and you don't have it anymore. This removes the double spending problem. And and so this Internet of Value is made possible by the blockchain technology. We'll talk about that for 2 days, but I'll just give you a very quick definition. So it's a decentralized database that stores a registry of assets and transactions across a peer-to-peer network. So basically, it's a record of who has what and who transacts what. And then this registry, all those little pieces of information, they are tied together, they are time-stamped, and they are stored on the computers of everyone on the network. This makes the record impossible to forge. I'd say impossible. That's and also you can't go back in time. You can't modify the information afterwards. And so you might say, okay, great. There is a new accounting system in town. Why should I care? Well, you should care because it's the first time in human history that people can trust each other, wherever they are in the world. They can trust each other and transact peer-to-peer. And I'd like to talk for a second about, the sharing economy. For example, maybe you guys can give me an example. So can you tell me the name of a company that allows you to order a taxi from an app peer-to-peer? Uber, yeah. Of course, I talked about it. Uber is worth $68 billion. Can you guys give me the name of a company that allows you to rent an apartment peer-to-peer from an app? Airbnb, that was a nice, unison thinking. Yeah. So yeah, Airbnb allows you to rent an apartment peer-to-peer. Airbnb is worth around $30 billion, and they make billions of dollars every year. Well, actually these two companies doesn't offer peer-to-peer services. What they do is they take a lot of offers, they put them together, they offer it to you, and then they sell it to you. And they take a margin around 10%. And this is how they can make so much money. And I was actually explaining blockchain to my mom, who does a lot of Airbnb, And so I explained to her the blockchain technology and smart contracts, and then she told me, and I swear this is true, she told me, but then instead of using Airbnb that takes 10%, maybe with this technology, I could transact with someone and rent the room to someone and trust him to pay, and he can trust me to actually rent the room. And I was like, way to go, Mom, you got it. So I was kind of proud, I have to admit. And this is really what you can do. Blockchain is about trust. It's about not using a big intermediary that is going to take a large margin to make the transaction and to provide trust. It's about being able to do it peer-to-peer. And yeah. And with this, with the Internet of Value, you can also create a place where contents can be shared in a fair way. So for example, there are several projects working on streaming platforms such as Spotify or Netflix, you know, in a really decentralized fashion that would allow the artists to be paid their fair share. For example, there is a project, I have no ties with them, I'm just talking about them because it's a good example. There is a project created by a Norwegian movie director called White Rabbit, and this project wants to help people create movies and then distribute them on the internet, and you can watch these movies on streaming platforms. And you can just watch it, and with the ads, you know, when you watch a movie in streaming, you get a ton of ads, you know, that's how they get paid. And well, with these ads, the profits are going to be channeled directly to the movie team, to the streaming platform, and of course a bit to White Rabbit, you know. And this ensures that without having intermediaries or anything, once the program is set, then the profits are channeled to the right person immediately. Then you can also create marketplaces, kind of like Airbnb or Uber, but actual peer-to-peer marketplaces with reputation systems that ensure that you know who you are talking to, that you know you can trust a person. And then the last thing I want to tell you about is identity. Please notice this amazing work of art by Magritte, a Belgian painter. Go Belgium! So the last thing I want to tell you about is identity. When you want to do anything on the internet, anything, you want to download an app, you want to order a product, you want to get the Wi-Fi at the airport, well, anything you want to do, you have to sign obscure terms and conditions. Who here reads terms and conditions? I don't. Yeah. And even if you try to read them, it's so long that it's impossible. Even for a lawyer, it's very, very long. And what happens if you don't want to sign them because it doesn't fit you? What can you do? You can be isolated from all digital services. That's all you can do. It's not possible. And basically, when you sign these terms and conditions, what you do is you give companies the right to take your data. And this is very valuable because your data shows what kind of consumer you are. It shows what kind of marketing messages are going to touch you. And this is worth money. For example, Google has so much data that they created statistical models that can predict your behavior. Google, with statistics, has created a virtual version of you that knows what you're going to do before you do it. And you know what? Google owns that virtual version of you because you signed up for that in the terms and conditions. And with a blockchain-based internet of value, we can take back our identities, assets that we created. We can take back our identities, we can monetize them, and we can manage them the way we see fit. So, for all of those who've been left out of the wealth creation of the Internet of Information, I'd like to quote Don Tapscott and say, make it rain on the blockchain. Thank you very much. That was way too short.
Do you have some questions?
That was 30 minutes. Should I take questions or? Cool.
Morning. My name is Svetoslav. I'm coming from Moscow from MG Capital Advisors, as an international venture company. You had a really nice slide where you had a picture of a bank and a couple processing companies like Visa and MasterCard. I was wondering whether you have any information or analysis of how many transactions per minute or per second is ran through Visa or MasterCard and a blockchain, and the cost of transaction.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe that will help to answer the question why there are not that many payment services that are currently run on blockchain.
Totally.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. That's a very good point. So, you know, I thought that was going to be 30 minutes, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go over it. But, so basically, a huge problem with blockchain is scalability. And, for example, with Visa, Visa prides themselves on being able to make 20,000 transactions per second. So this is like the maximum capacity. The Bitcoin network can do maximum 7 transactions per second. So this is way less, of course. And so this is a real problem. And there's this, of course. Then there's all kinds of problems with the scalability of the blockchain technology, of course. But still we see that many projects are coming up, inventing new technologies. You have, for example, Hashgraph, inventing new technologies that will allow the blockchain to scale. I think the blockchain technology will scale, and it's still the beginning. I mean, think about the internet. Like when you had a floppy disk that was so big, you know, it was so big, and you could store like what, 2 words document on it, and now you have a USB stick like this size, and this is like 64 gigabytes. Could people imagine this in 92 when they had floppy disk? People could not imagine this kind of scalability. So I think blockchain is going to scale, and I think at the moment, you're right, still best alternative to use Visa. That's faster and cheaper, but I think at some point it's going to scale. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Okay, forget about the introduction because we are short on time. You were talking about removing intermediaries like Visa, Master and all. My question is very specifically about the security part of it. When we visit any particular website or something, a security certificate comes up which says, okay, do you trust this site? Either me or my public key or my private key or whatever. Using blockchain, do you see a possibility that we can do away with security certificates? We can go directly to any site, peer-to-peer.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I often get is, for example, if you lose your private key or if you get hacked or anything. And it's true that that is a bit scary because on the blockchain, on the decentralized system, you don't have a centralized authority who's going to act like your parents. You know? If you send a transaction to the wrong key, well, it's lost. And if you lose your password, your private key, it's lost as well. And of course, that's a bit of an issue for some people. You have to actually be responsible for yourself. And this might be a bit scary, and I think this is one of the breaks to adoption. I don't think you can say that. One of the obstacles to adoption that people are going to see is that it's kind of hard to be responsible for your own actions. And maybe, you know, people are talking about having centralized authorities that handles things, but I don't know. Personally, I like the part where you're responsible for yourself. I kind of like that. Yeah, I actually did that with a timer, and it was 30 minutes. I don't know how.
Hi, my name is Tina, and I'm currently also founding a venture in that space. You talked about basically Airbnb being replaced by blockchain and such. The thing about that, though, Airbnb is not in the payment service. Airbnb is a marketplace, right? That's their business model. So in the end, the blockchain cannot tell you that in New York there's a guy renting out their apartment that I can rent, right? So one of the things that a lot of people talk about at the moment are dApps, so decentralized apps, but you don't see a lot. What do you think is the main problem of actually building proper products, like user-facing products on the blockchain at the moment?
So excellent question. There is a huge problem at the moment. Is this for me? Yeah, I guess it is. There is a huge problem at the moment. So is the lack of user-friendliness of blockchain application. Right now, it's really hard if you are, you know, like if you're my grandma, it's really hard to go and use a decentralized, even a simple cryptocurrency wallet. It's kind of hard to download the stuff and everything, right? And I think what we really need, and as you said, a blockchain can't replace Airbnb. Like you can't have a blockchain and then people access it. No, you need an interface to access it. And this, I don't see this going away in the few years, or maybe by some technology I can't imagine. But I think we're still going to need people to build interfaces, user-friendly interfaces, that will allow you to access the data stored on the blockchain. So I think, yeah, we are going to have dApps, but we are still going to need the user-friendliness and the interface. And there are still going to be companies who are going to take a small percentage but I think way less than what regular intermediaries do now. And I think we are going to have these companies who still take a percentage. Yeah.
Hi. It was mentioned that you have some sort of a study or an academic paper that you wrote about crypto. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah. I haven't talked about that in a while. So basically, I wrote my thesis on the utility of cryptocurrencies, and then my research question was, has Bitcoin been a safe haven currency? So I studied the period, I think it was between 2012, between 2016, yeah? Oh no, that couldn't. 2011, 2015, that was the period. And so basically I tried to check out if it was a safe haven currency, meaning, you know, like gold and the Swiss franc. So meaning when the markets go kind of crazy, then people buy the safe haven currency and it increases in value. So I tried to look for a correlation between the indicator of a stress on the markets, the VIX, and the price of Bitcoin. I tried to see a correlation. And there was no correlation. So, not a safe haven currency at that period, at least. Maybe
so we are out of time. Thank you, Emilie, for a nice talk.
My blockchain for good thing, if you want. As you wish.
Just take your time, 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So I'll tell you a little bit about that blockchain for good thing that I do. So I organize meetups in Geneva, as I said, and then projects who have a positive social impact come and present their idea. And one of the projects I really like is the one written there. It's Odem, and now I work for them, so it's kind of a tiny commercial. So what we do is we create a marketplace, but a user-friendly marketplace, where students and teachers can meet to have face-to-face classes. And our aim with this is really to make education affordable for everyone. And we're talking about quality education. Like we have Harvard teachers on the platform and everything, you know? And we want to allow people to go just on the platform and look for all kind of different education programs and be able to choose and see the difference between them and see how much it costs and exactly what they're going to do, what they are going to learn. And then they can choose this program and there is a smart contract that executes it, and it's so directly connecting the students with the teacher and letting them trust each other. So that was my tiny commercial.
Thank you very much. If you have some more questions. I think you can catch Emilie during the conference,
yeah,
yes?
I'll be done for the 2 days, so whenever you want, I'm here. And I have free t-shirts.
Now we have a 5 minutes break before we prepare to the next talk. It will be also connected with the fundamentals of blockchain and its history.